Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling when you walk into a friend's home and it just feels right?
Yeah, like it has a certain vibe or uniquely them.
Exactly. Beyond just the decor, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like their space tells a story without saying anything. Well, you asked us to take a deep dive into your sources on this very topic. We're looking particularly at Mia Gibson's insightful article, How Cultural Background Influences Design Preferences.
A really fascinating piece.
It is. So our mission in this deep dive is to explore that profound connection between culture, identity, heritage, and the stories we tell through our living spaces. Sometimes subtly, sometimes, well, not so subtly.
Right.
We're going to try and pull out the most potent insights, those real aha moments from Mia's work.
And it's interesting because this isn't just about aesthetics, is it? What's really key here is uncovering the unspoken narratives, the things embedded in our homes.
Unspoken narratives, I like that.
Yeah. And these design preferences are often so deeply ingrained, like shaped by really early imprints from growing up, way before we consciously think about decorating.
So it's like a subconscious blueprint, then, for what home should feel like.
That's a great way to put it. The
Hmm.
subconscious blueprint. It's not just about conscious choices we make later on.
It's almost like our cultural upbringing kind of hardwires a fundamental understanding what space, color, even comfort should feel like for us.
Precisely. And the real insight here is how deep these sensory blueprints go. They're not just visual.
Oh,
It's about how a space feels, maybe how it sounds, even how it smells. These are primal associations, often formed long before we ever pick up a paint swatch.
wow.
And they dictate our comfort levels in ways we don't even realize sometimes.
That makes so much sense. The article mentioned a great anecdote about Mia, didn't it? Her first apartment after college, realizing something about her own choices.
Yes, absolutely. It's a perfect example. Mia describes moving into her first place, right? And she finds herself just drawn to these very traditional colors and patterns.
Okay.
And it wasn't until a friend actually pointed it out that she had this aha moment. She realized she was unintentionally recreating the comforting feeling of her grandmother's house.
Just pure instinct then.
Pure instinct, a really deep-seated connection to her personal heritage bubbling up.
That's a perfect illustration, how personal heritage guides us in these surprising, almost invisible ways. Did the article give other examples of that kind of instinctive pull?
It did, yeah. Looking broader, Mia also talks about her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's half Swedish, but grew up entirely in Chicago.
Okay, so no direct experience living there.
Right, never lived in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
But he has this almost instinctive preference for minimal design, light wood furniture.
Yeah, classic Scandinavia.
Exactly. It shows how deeply these cultural traits can be inherited or absorbed somehow, even bypassing direct experience. It just manifests as what feels right.
Incredible. So we've been talking about these subtle whispers of culture, but sometimes they're more like a vibrant shout, aren't they?
Definitely.
Let's talk about maybe the most immediate cultural statement, color choices. How does our cultural identity really, paint our palettes?
Well, this is where cultural influence is often most visible, most obvious perhaps.
Yeah.
Warm, rich tones, for instance. Think deep reds, oranges, yellows. They're often really intrinsic to African, Indian, and Latin cultures. Colors that evoke passion, energy, celebration.
Okay.
But then, in stark contrast, you have Scandinavian and Japanese backgrounds. They frequently value neutral, nature-inspired palettes. It's more about simplicity, light, tranquility.
And the article gives some really vivid examples of this contrast in action.
It does.
Like imagining a friend from Mexico feeling genuinely cold or maybe empty in homes that don't have those bold hues.
Right. Finding the popular whites and grays just uninviting.
Yeah. Or think about red in Chinese homes symbolizing luck, prosperity. That's a very different association than in many Western design traditions.
Completely different meaning.
And oh, the blues and whites in Greek interiors, directly reflecting the sea and sky,
Beautiful.
which is worlds apart from, say, the earthy ochres and terracottas you might see dominating North African designs.
And these cultural stories, they go beyond just color. They're deeply embedded in the materials we choose too.
Ah, okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's often connected to what was historically available, sure, but also what was valued, what symbolized permanence or artistry or connection to nature.
So, like specific examples.
Yeah, so Japanese design, for example, often favors natural, almost ephemeral elements like bamboo, rice paper, simple wood. It's about integrating the environment.
Right, that sense of harmony.
Exactly. And similarly, Nordic homes feature lots of light woods, pine, birch. That reflects the forest there, but also a practical need to brighten interiors during those long, dark winters.
It's amazing how deep those roots go, right down to the wood grain. But what happens when people start intentionally mixing these things? Because modern homes today, they're rarely just one thing, are they?
No, absolutely not. And that's where it gets really interesting.
Let's dive into that dynamic then. Traditional meets modern.
Yeah, because modern design isn't usually about just discarding heritage. What's really intriguing is how mixing old traditions with new trends. It's not just about looks.
Okay.
It keeps homes deeply personal. It adds incredible depth, a kind of narrative evolution. It allows this ongoing conversation between past and present within the space.
The article had a great example of that, didn't it? Mia's old college roommate in New York.
Yes, that was a good one. She lives in this sleek, definitely modern apartment.
Right.
But her Turkish heritage really shines through. She's carefully incorporated intricate textiles, brass decorative pieces. It sounds like a beautiful fusion.
It really does. So for you listening, how can you achieve that kind of balance? Is there a trick to it?
Well, it's mostly about being intentional, really thinking about it. You might say, display your grandmother's hand-embroidered pillows, but put them against a really minimalist sofa.
Okay, that contrast.
Exactly. Or place cherished family heirlooms next to more, maybe custom-looking modern furniture. And there's a brilliant piece of practical guidance from the source.
Yeah.
The 80-20 rule.
Ah, yes, the 80-20 rule. Explain that.
The idea is to aim for about 80% contemporary pieces and then 20% culturally significant items.
Okay, that 80-20 rule sounds really tangible, helpful. But, what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to do that? Does that 20% sometimes feel tacked on?
That's a really crucial question.
Yeah.
And yes, the mistake is often treating the 20% as just decoration, like accessories you sprinkle in.
Right.
Instead of integrating it conceptually, it's about how the pieces interact with the other 80%.
Yeah.
The rule helps prevent the space feeling like a museum,
Gotcha.
while still honoring your heritage meaningfully, making sure those cultural elements feel like they truly belong, not like they're just visiting.
That makes perfect sense. Integration, not just addition. Okay, now let's maybe take a quick world tour. How do cultural values shape not just the look, but the actual function and organization of spaces? Because it's not just aesthetics, is it? It's how the space works.
Exactly. Function is huge. And what we find is how distinct regional styles emerge directly from a culture's specific needs and values.
Okay, like where?
Well, take Scandinavia. Design there really prioritizes functionality, simplicity. Clean lines, neutral colors are common, yes, but the spaces are often engineered to maximize natural light, crucial during those long, dark winters.
Makes sense. Very practical.
Yeah.
But for someone from a culture that maybe embraces more warmth, more ornamentation, could that minimalism feel a bit stark or even cold?
It absolutely could. And that's the whole point of understanding these cultural lenses, right? Everyone perceives it differently.
Right.
Then if we look at Japanese design, it actively embraces concepts like ma. That's the intentional empty space, the pause, allowing elements to breathe, encouraging contemplation.
Negative space having value.
Precisely. And wabi-sabi, which is all about finding beauty in imperfection and the transient nature of things, the natural wear of time. Think of a beautifully aged, slightly chipped ceramic bowl being prized.
That's a very different mindset.
Very different. And it translates into serene, often minimalist rooms, natural materials, asymmetrical arrangements.
Okay, so contrast that with...
Well, compare that to Indian homes. They often celebrate color and pattern with vibrant textiles, intricate woodwork. And the spaces themselves are often designed specifically for large, extended family gatherings, for communal living.
Function driving form again.
Exactly. Or even within the U.S., think about the regional variations. The adobe styles of the Southwest, totally different from the classic colonials of New England. Or the bright, airy designs common in California. Each tells a story about settlement, climate, history.
It's fascinating how those deep traditions dictate the very layout. So how else do cultural traditions shape the organization of our homes?
You have to ask.
Yeah.
What social values are being prioritized by the layout? For instance, the article describes a Korean-American family whose living room furniture was arranged in a perfect circle. Why? To facilitate conversation.
Ah, not pointed at a TV.
Exactly. A striking contrast to the TV-focused layouts you see so often in American homes. Or think about open-concept floor plans. In many Latin cultures, they were common long before they became a trend elsewhere.
Why is that?
Because family togetherness, communal cooking, those are central values. The space reflects that.
Interesting.
Or consider Middle Eastern and North African homes. They often feature very distinct public and private spaces. Sometimes the most beautiful rooms are reserved specifically for guests.
As a sign of hospitality.
A deep cultural emphasis on hospitality and respect. And even something as simple as furniture height conveys cultural values. Traditional Japanese homes often use floor seating, low tables. That's a world away from Western elevated furniture.
Right.
These aren't just random choices. They reflect deeply rooted cultural traditions about posture, formality, social interaction.
So bringing it all back home, literally, for you, the listener, how can you harness your own cultural background or maybe cultures you admire to create your unique modern home, something that feels truly you?
Yeah, that's the key question. I think the first step is really to identify elements of your heritage that genuinely resonate. What speaks to you personally?
So it doesn't have to be everything from that culture.
Not at all. Maybe it's the rich textiles of Morocco or the clean lines and warm woods of Scandinavian design. Pick what feels authentic to you. And then, importantly, emphasize quality over quantity.
How so?
Well, one stunning handmade rug, for example, can anchor a room and tell a story far better than, say, dozens of small trinkets scattered about.
Less is more sometimes.
Often, yes. And also consider how those cultural elements will interact with your existing furniture and architecture. Don't be afraid of contrast. It often creates the most interesting, dynamic spaces.
And it's really about honoring that heritage through thoughtful design, isn't it? So each cultural object isn't just there, it tells a personal story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just decorating. You're embedding your story, maybe your family's story, into the space. It makes it unique.
That leads to truly unique spaces, I bet.
Absolutely. And for those in multicultural families or partnerships, this is a wonderful opportunity. Honoring multiple heritages can create incredibly rich, layered, unique interiors.
Like Mia and her boyfriend.
Precisely. The article mentions them blending their background, her colorful Latin American textiles alongside his Scandinavian-inspired furniture. They create a space that feels uniquely us, not just his or hers.
That's beautiful, but it does bring up a really important point, doesn't it? The difference between respectful borrowing and, well, appropriation, especially when incorporating elements from cultures that aren't your own heritage.
That's a vital point to address, really crucial. When drawing inspiration from other cultures, it's essential to approach it with respect and, importantly, knowledge.
So do your homework.
Yes. Learn the meaning behind patterns, motifs, objects. Don't just treat them as purely decorative trends. Understand the context. And whenever possible, try to support artisans directly.
Ah, that's key.
It ensures authenticity, and it contributes back to the community where these traditions originated, rather than just buying mass-produced approximations. It's about valuing the story, the craft, not just the aesthetic.
That makes sense. So as you, the listener, consider how cultural background influences design preferences in your own space. Remember, there's really no single right or wrong approach.
Absolutely no.
Some people might feel drawn to create homes that really strongly reflect their background, very overtly. Others might prefer just subtle nods, little whispers of their cultural roots.
And both are perfectly valid.
Right. What truly matters is that your space feels authentic to you, a true reflection of your journey, your identity.
You know, I've found that the most memorable homes, the ones that really stick with you, aren't the perfectly styled ones you see in magazines. No, they're the ones where you can truly feel the personality, the history of the people who live there. Those cultural touches, whether it's your grandmother's old pasta bowl displayed proudly or a contemporary artwork inspired by traditional patterns, they add a dimension.
Soul.
Exactly. A soul that no trendy decor item, no matter how expensive, can ever replicate.
So in the end, your home is kind of your personal museum, isn't it? Telling the story of who you are, where you come from.
That's a lovely way to think about it.
By embracing how your cultural background influences your design preferences, you create spaces with that soul, with real meaning. And that will never go out of style.
Never.
So go ahead, hang that vibrant textile, display those family heirlooms, mix in those cultural elements that really speak to your heart. What unspoken stories will your home tell about you?